Yes, Teacher Maxwell, we can see your screen. Kindly take it up.
Thank you so much. So going forward, ladies and gentlemen, I want us to take the next move an hour or so and look at how best can we be able to develop our content, or rather curate our content that we can then go ahead and use on our online platform. We already know that we started by looking at how we can be able to plan the lesson. And once the lesson has been planned, we therefore need to know what are we going to deliver to the students? What are we going to take the students through, whether remotely or synchronous way or asynchronous way? What is it that we need to give to these students that should be a bit different or unique from what you have been doing in the face-to-face or in the physical spaces that we have meeting the students? Remember, these are type of learning where now the teacher and the students are not in the same physical space. We talk of remote learning. So how do we curate content that is ideal for a remote learning session? So we'll be able to take you through the content development methodology or scenarios for that matter. And in order for you to create an engaging content, maybe like, let's say a science teacher, you want to introduce, let's say, a concept on forces, and you are doing it virtually. How do you engage these students so that they are with you for the 30 minutes or the 35 minutes that you want to engage them? How do you ensure that you introduce this concept such that the learners are excited about it? And the most ideal way of ensuring that your lesson, your virtual lesson, is engaging, you can never go wrong when you consider using multimedia content. Multimedia in this case, I mean both visual, audio, and also text. In other words, they can read, they can hear the sound, and they can also probably relate to infographics or images pertaining to that particular concept. And the power of open source multimedia content, when I talk of open source multimedia content, I talk of those content that are somewhere in a server that you don't need to pay for it as a teacher. You can access them and use them freely with your learners. Later on, we shall be looking at what we call the open educational resources. So you don't have to create the content yourself, because sometimes creating some of this digital content can take you some more time, and this will eat into your lesson planning time. So if you can access this readily made content for you, how best can you be able to use it to curate your lesson? Later on, I'll be taking you through some of the sites that you can get this free curated content for you. You just customize it and use it for your class. So the resources for curating interactive content, we have mainly what we call the open educational resources. Then we shall also take a look at how you can get free ebooks. An ebook is basically a digitized course book or textbook that, instead of you copying the notes from the book, now converting them back to a digital format, you just get the digital ebook and you can be able to customize it, make notes from it and all that. I'll also take you through a tool that we call the photo story or the picture story, and how it is helping people out there and educators at large in the world to make their lessons more interactive and more educative to the learner. And then I'll wrap it up by looking at another tool that I like using most. We call it the visual understanding environment or the concept map. For presentation of this content, I will spare the EXE tool because it's a bit lengthy. It might not fit into our 1 hour, but in the next module, I'll take a first 20 or so minutes to try and take you through these lesson presentation tools like the EXE and all that. So why do we need open education resources? But before even we talk about open education, do we really understand what open education resources are? Now, the term OER was first coined at the UNESCO 2002 Forum on Open Courseware to refer to openly licensed texts, media, and other digital assets that are useful for teaching and learning, and also as well as assessing students. And you can also use them probably for research. Those of you who've done maybe some research work, you'll realize that you need to cite some other sources where you're getting your information from. We call these open educational resources. They reside domain and or with needs no cost access. You can courses so that at some or to make reference to them without using any extra coin. So the users of open education resources are allowed to engage in any of the 5 R's that are being displayed on your screen. The first 5 R of the 5, we talk of retaining. So when you talk of retaining of this material, you as the user of this open education resource, you have the right to make, own, and control copies of the content. For example, you can download, you can duplicate, you can store, and you can also manage them generally on your end. And then the second R stands for reuse. Reuse in this case, you as the user of the OERs, you have the right to use the content in a wide range of ways. For example, you can use it in class, you can maybe use it in a study group, or you can even post it on a website or even in a video. And then the third R stands for revise. The revise for open education resources, you as the user, you have the right to adapt, adjust, modify, or even alter the content itself. For example, maybe if it is in one language and you want to translate to your learners, let's say in Swahili, you can translate the content. If it's a video, you can incorporate translation. If it is for the students with maybe the deaf or those who are hearing impaired, you can bring in maybe a sign language interpreter so that as you show the video to the student, the sign language interpreter is able to interpret the sound to those learners with hearing impaired. That's what we mean by revising the open education resource. And then we have the remixing. Remixing in this case, you as the user of this resource, you have the right to combine the original or revised content with other materials so as to create something new. For example, maybe you could incorporate the content into a mix-up of things. Maybe you want to use a few images from the open education resources and those add some more images maybe from another collection. You can remix it. And then you can redistribute. This means that the right to share copies of the original content in which your revisions are included, or even maybe your remixes and other copies that you have maybe added or altered to this open education resource. So these are the 5 R's that govern what we call open education resources. So as an educator, learn to get these open education resources that you can always use them, reuse them, retaining, revising them to make your lesson very interactive. I'll be able to take you through some of these sites where we can get these open education resources later in the module. And therefore, when you talk about open education resources, what is the rationale of using OERs? Why do we want to use OERs in our education, in our virtual classroom? So there are quite a number of advantages and or the pros of using open education as an educator. What will give you a wide variety of materials, and therefore, because they are ubiquitous, I want to use as a more simpler word, they can be accessed from any device at any time. That's what basically mean by ubiquitous. In other words, the level of access of these resources is not only fixed maybe in one mode of presentation. For example, when you talk of the physical books that we use in classroom, those course books are not ubiquitous. It means if I have to share this book with learners somewhere, I'll have to borrow that book from learner A and take it maybe to another class 7J, to give to another learner. That means I've denied the first learner access to this resource. But the good thing with the open education resource is that while learner A is accessing them, learner B can still access them at the same time without denying any of them access to it. They are adaptable, in other words, bespoke in the sense that they can be modified and can be narrowed or customized or tailor-suited to topics that are relevant to your class. So if you find these materials, some areas are not very relevant to what you're teaching, you can do away with them and add more. So that's what you mean by adaptability or being bespoke in nature. And then the other property for these open education resources, they are versatile. So versatility means that enhancement of these materials, such as texts, images, and videos, can be used to support different learning styles. And most of these open education resources are multimedia in nature. They are not only in text, neither are they only in videos, or neither are they only in audio. There is a mix-up of all these three multisensory knowledge in them. And then proliferation as the next property of open education resources, it means that they can rapidly be disseminated. In other words, they can rapidly be distributed within the shortest time possible. For example, if I had, let's say, a Longhorn course book for grade 5 in a digital format, in PDF, it means that this book, if I have it on my phone, I can be able to share it with the teacher or with the learners in Mandera within the split of a second, simply because the book is in digital format, so it can easily be distributed. Unlike if I was to send the real book, the physical book to Mandera, it will take like 4 or 5 days via courier services. So it means that open education resources are much proliferable in the sense that they can easily be distributed within the fastest way possible online. And therefore this saves costs for both students and even the educators who are collaborating from different areas. So with this more advantages on open education resources, we therefore want to see, where are some of these educational resources? Where can we get some of them in terms of, now that you know they exist? Are they free? Yes, of course, you said they are free. So what are some of the sites that we can be able to get these educational resources? There are quite a number of sites that I'll want us to share, and I'll also be able to share with Vida the links so that you guys can be able to access them at your own free time. See how else you can get books from them. How can you use them in your normal teaching for free without paying a single cost? The most important open education resource that is homegrown, and with us, most of us teachers, we've been being undertaken through what we call remote learning methodology. The most important open education resource site that we have currently in Kenya that is in line with the syllabus is in line with the curriculum is by what we call KICD, Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, and we call it the Kenya Education Cloud. I know majority of you have used it, the Kenya Education Cloud. So I just want to deviate a little bit and give you a sneak preview into what the Kenya Education Cloud has and how you can be able to use it at your own disposal. And of course, we have our very own open education resource here, Angaza. There are so many resources on the Angaza platform, that the one that is facilitating this training. We still have so many other resources on many other sites that you educators can be able to get it for free. And when you use them, probably the quality assurance in the ministry or the quality assurance with the TSE will not have a problem, because these are sites that have been approved by the government to offer teaching content and or learning content for the learners without having you to struggle with the issues of being able to follow the quality or the standards that is required. So quickly, as I take you through the Kenya Education Cloud, you'll much of the time you'll be able to go over it and have a look at it by yourself. So allow me to take you through that quickly. So I hope you can be able to see, I'm actually on the learning management site for KICD, which we call the Kenya Education Cloud. I hope, Kiko, if you can hear me, can they see my screen?
Yes, it's quite visible.
Okay, so let me relog in, probably because my screen timed out before I come back to you guys. So when you just go to your browser and look for Kenya Education Cloud, it should be able to load you that interface that looks like that. So we are on the KICD platform, which gives you a category of a number of resources. We have the early years, or what we can call the preschool, up to grade 3. And then we have the upper primary. For those who are doing CBC, we still have both CBC and SNE, and then the regular, the 844. And then for the teachers in secondary, because we are basically here at primary, let us concentrate at this. So if you go, for example, if you go to grade 4 content, I've just clicked on grade 4 content. Look at what we have. We have interactive digital content. We have ebooks. We have radio lessons. And we have Edu channel for TV, for example, if you wanted to watch a lesson on certain content. So for ebooks, for instance, if I click on it, it should be able to give you some courses which you can navigate through. Whether you want it on remote learning, you want a Lemika portal, learning management system portal. For the learning management system portal, you must have an account and create one and to be able to log in. But for open education resources, we have quite a number of them, the topics and all that you need. For example, if you go to maybe hygiene and nutrition, what are the open education resources available? It displays for you all this. We have food and nutrition, which is unlocked. If you click on it, let's see. There it is. So one thing that you need to realize is that in order for you to get full accessibility to the Kenya Education Cloud, you need to create an account, because if you browse it as a guest, you might not have access to all these content. So I just wanted to show you how you can be able to navigate through the Kenya Education Cloud and get access to all these resources that we have here. So at this point, you see, I'm being told to log in so that you get access to all that you need to get. And this is absolutely free. KICD does not sell this on Kenya Education Cloud. As long as you're a teacher with a TSC number, and in most cases, using the TSC email, which the TSC has been very keen on us teachers to have, you then access all these kind of educational resources. So that is the site number one. I always tell teachers, make sure that you are aware of the Kenya Education Cloud. All these resources have been created for you. Out there, we have other resources or other sites where we can also be able to gauge or to get some content on. And this is the template I wanted to share with you. I'll be able to share the link to it so that at your own free time, you'll be able to go through it. The general information about all this, let me can zoom in on my websites. We have the Test India, Math and Science. On this side, we have another one we are calling TESA. Don't worry if I move fast, because I'll share this document with you so that on the WhatsApp, so that you can be able to take time and just go through the sites pole as you get to familiarize yourself with it. We have TESA. TESA is mainly doing mathematics, science, social studies, life skills, and literacy. And it's mainly for teachers and educators. Then we have another one, our very own one, which is the Wings to Fly, the Wings to Fly portal. It has all the subjects in Kenya secondary school and also in primary level for teachers and also for students. And then we have the African Virtual University. Subjects here we have mathematics, science, ICT, and probably some teacher development courses for teacher education. You can also find them here. And then we have the ACE Math, mainly for mathematics, primary and secondary. And then it targets the teachers and students too. Then the OER Africa, which has a multiple number of subjects that you can access. Then we have the African Storybook Project, still under the OER Africa, where we have early literacy and reading for preschool learners and up to around grade 2 or grade 3 there. Parents can also be logging onto this site. Teachers and learners too can log in so that you get access to such kind of information. We have another one we call, which we have it locally here, and that's what I've used most of my time to get some resources from. I call it Snaplify. Snaplify is an open education resource company that has partnered with publishers, major publishers in and out of Africa, to have free ebooks, or what we call free course books that you can always access using what we call Snaplify Engage. They have an app reader that you can be able to read their content. Once you log in, even offline, you can be able to read. The only challenge is you cannot download the books to transmit to another person. So for you to access all these books, just you sign up for free, absolutely. But if you want some other more elaborate books, then you pay a very small fee, tunes of 150 shillings to about 200, and you have an entire PDF of a book. For example, if you're looking at Longhorn Mathematics grade 6, you have that book there. Other than buying it at 500 shillings if it was a physical book, you just buy by, let's say, 150 to 200 shillings, and you have the ebook. You as a teacher, your work is simplified. You can refer to those notes digitally. You can upload those notes maybe to your students through a learning management system, and so many other open education resources that we have around the internet and all that. All these are open educational resource sites. I'll be able to share with you all this so that everybody, you can have your own copy and use them at your free will. That aside, when you talk about open education resources, what else can we use probably in order for us to, let's say, engage on matters to do with the curating online content? So the next should be what I want to call concept maps or mind maps. What is it with mind maps? I'll also be taking you through a visual understanding environment, a software that we can use as teachers to create very good mind maps for our own use. So when you talk about a concept map, you're saying basically it is a visual organizer that can enrich students' understanding of a new concept. For example, you want to introduce a totally new concept in your lesson, and you don't know how to use it. You don't know how to introduce the lesson because maybe the concept you're introducing is more of you do not have any real teacher map. So it is basically a concept in several ways, and most of such as what is it like, what are some examples. So you can use such kind of engagements in order to come up with a concept of actually what is displaying on your screens to the right is an example of a concept map, which you can be able to use to teach, I think this grade 4 science about plants and the parts of a plant. That is the roots, the plant has a flower, the plant has leaves, the plant needs sunlight. You see all this, you, instead of giving students or bombarding students with too much notes, when you have such a concept map, you have basically covered like 2 lessons with that infograph alone. So how can you come up with such a diagram for you to use in your remote teaching or in your virtual classroom? I'll be taking you through quite a number of steps that you can do to come up with a simple concept map. And in this case, remember I'm saying that concept maps are used to organize ideas into coherent structures so that you can be able to plan and achieve your learning outcomes in a more friendly way without struggling. The simplest way to can come up with a concept map is using a word editor like Microsoft Word. In our computers, or for those those schools who received the DLP gadgets, the laptops and all that, I know most of you, sometimes you go to the cyber, you want to be typeset a document. They use what you call Microsoft Word as a word editor. And in any computer that has operating Windows, you'll get a word editor, like, the Microsoft Word editor. How can you use that so that you can be able to make a simple concept map like what we have here? So I want to take time and take you through a simple procedure. So I'll open up my Word document. Just to have a look at what you need to create. So allow me to open up a new Word document. And I'll also be able to highlight for you these procedures. So with a Word document like that, depending on the type of version of Windows you're using, mine is Windows 10. You can be using Windows 7 or Windows 8 or Windows 16, whichever you're using. So when you open your Word document, this is how it looks like. So what do you start with first in order for you to create a good concept? Let's say maybe you want to create a concept map on living things. We want to create a very good, elaborate concept map on living things. How will it look like? So you start by inserting a canvas. You go to the Insert tab. When you press on the Insert tab, you can insert a cover page, rather a drawing canvas, so that if you go to the shapes, so you insert a new drawing canvas first, so that it can give you the borderline where you want your concept map to appear. You can expand this a little bit or less. Maybe I want to make it, I want to make my canvas in landscape, so I'll go to layout. Look at where I'm going, orientation. I want to change my paper so that it's in landscape, so that whatever I have enough space to move around with. So this is my drawing canvas, my new canvas. We need to give our concept map a new title. We said we want to make a concept map on living things. So I'll go back to insert, pick on shapes, pick on any text box there and put it there like that. And then we call it, we right click on it. We want to add text. So when you right click on it, it opens for you this drop down arrow. Then you say add text. I want my text to appear in black, and we're saying we are making a living things concept map. So with such, you can increase the font a little bit to that so that it's more visible. A living things concept map. Maybe you also want to highlight it so that the background color is has a sharp contrast. So with this, you can fill the shape and maybe choose on you choose on maybe that, just to make it look well presented. Colors enhance visibility. So when we start doing things on, when we start making a concept map on living things, you must have an idea of where you want to start from. It must have like a starting point. Where do you want to start from? So I might choose a shape like this one and say, inside this shape, I want to have my classification of living things or grouping of living things. So I add text in there and say classification of living things. That is in what? Microsoft Word editor. You can bold that and increase maybe the size for enhancement. Then maybe you want to give it, let's retain it as blue background. Then under living things, you can classify living things into two: animals and plants. So I want us to have two more shapes. I'll put that one here. And put this other one here. How are these two linked to the to call it animals? So I'm getting me from your end. Kiko, confirm?
Yes, I can hear you. I lost you a little bit, but I can hear you right now.
Okay. So this node, we can call this a node, and this is a node, and this is another node. So this node that I've called animals is related to the first node, that is main node, which is classification of living things. And how do we relate these two? We have to use a link. A link in this case, you can use a line. When you hover onto this first node, you see it highlights itself. You can click there and then drag the line onto the second one. It highlights and leave the line there. You can make the line more bold, maybe, so that maybe you can add more weight on that line to make it more visible like that. So this is a link between the first node and the second node. Then you can also create another link between this first node and this third node, which we want to add text and call them plants. So maybe because most plants are green in nature, we can let this node take color green. So we come here to shape fill, give it green. I hope that is green. Remember, you're making a concept map to enhance your lesson so that instead of giving learners only notes, they can see your lesson is more linked in such a way that it is appealing. So we can maybe drop it here. And this one, we drop it here. Then we pick on another link again. We can still copy this. And use that here. For animals, maybe we could use another color to enhance these to enhance this. So in the animal shape, I want us to maybe put, let's say, color red, maybe. Most animals have blood. So you can have that. That's too screaming. Maybe we can have that to make it more appealing. Now, when you have linked these three nodes, see what happens when I drag on any of the nodes. You see it moves together with its link. So this makes it very appealing. You can move it around. If you want to add something, other cluster of group nodes somewhere there, you can always do that. So, and then probably to also ensure that your work is neat, because sometimes you can be doing this and then you have power outage. You need to save your diagram very well. So before you save, you need to group them so that they move together as a unit. And how do you group that? You select all the three, then you come to, there's a tab here, top right, where you say group, and you group, it is one diagram. So it moves as a unit like that. So when you save this, you don't fear that, oh, I lose my diagram or what. And if you want to move it and enhance it, you can still move it like that. So you can continue with this until you end up, maybe we can do on the animal side, then you can practice this later on at your own free time by maybe adding, we can add a few classification of animals. We have animals, we can classify them as, I think, vertebrates and invertebrates. So maybe we could change the shape there. We take on this shape and say, let us call these vertebrates, and let us call these invertebrates. So add text, we call that vertebrates. And then we call these invertebrates. So with that, you add a link to. And bold it. And you also add it here. This can go on until you have a good mind map that you can be able to show your students at a glance. And this makes your topic or your lesson that you're teaching within that class very interesting, because the students can be able to conceptualize, they can figuratively see how the knowledge has been arranged. And this enhances their retention and also helps them to recall easily and apply things easily when they see it in that's why we are calling it a mind map, or other sources call it concept map. So this is what you can use in order to curate your content that you can be using online. Other than the Microsoft Word editor, I don't know how, I will also be able to take you through another tool that you can use for this. That one makes your work easy. You don't need to be selecting concepts like this. We call it the Visual Understanding Environment. It is a free software. If you go if you go on the internet and you Google VUE, Visual Understanding Environment, it will give you something like this. You can install it on your desktop, in your schools, and be able to use it very well. So this is what happens when you open the VUE. This gives you a faster way of drawing those concept maps. You can see its environment. I don't know if I can be able to zoom in. Yeah. So it will give you all these dots. So when you want to pick on, let's say, a node, you just have to select that. It already gives you a node with the typing in points. So maybe you talk of classification of animals. Already we have that. You select another one. Or even if you want to select multiple nodes, you can select multiple nodes by using this bracket there. So when you do that, it gives you another node. A link already. So you just click and drag, click and drag. It is able to give you those very many nodes. So I hope you are able to follow through. So you can easily create this, and then the links, it will always give you links that the moment the link touches the new, we call, you can label the link, even if it's a process. For example, you are maybe talking of animals eat food. So you can label that link as feeding. When you label the link feeding, you can use this to create very good illustrations on, for example, those people who are teaching primary consumers, secondary consumers, tertiary consumers, and all that. You can use this to come up with very good food chains and food webs if you are teaching it in primary science. I'll be able to share the link for the VUE, Visual Understanding Environment, so that you guys can just be able to go through and see how it looks. And then the best thing about it, you can be able to present your, I've just clicked on present, and that is what it brings me. It highlights the concept map very well. So you can be able to highlight on, you can hover on any of them. Yeah. So when you press on this present playback slides, it brings you all that. And then there's a way you can set the, say that when you hover your mouse, it highlights or it enhances the node. So when you select on hover zoom and then you play, see what happens when I'm hovering on the slide. It is able to give me that and all that. So these are view environments. When I hover on it, you can be able to see how my concept map will be looking like. It highlights that. It highlights all that. So this makes it very interactive for the learner. The VUE, very important for making concept map. I've said you can make concept maps either as a Word document editor or using the virtual understanding environment, VUE, visual understanding environment, which I'll be able to share the link to it. It's a free software. You just download it from the internet for free and install it on your desktop, and you're ready to go. And you can make as many concept maps as possible. So that with concept maps, how else can you also enhance these virtual classroom lessons as we package our content? We can also be able to, I've showed you how to design those concept maps and all that. So I've already talked about why we need to use concept maps. We are saying they are useful for students to learn better visually, and they can also benefit even any type of, even a slow learner who has issues with listening. So there are those learners who might be very poor at listening, but at seeing things, they learn very fast. Yeah. So concept maps can be very helpful to such kind of learners. So the benefits will be, it helps learners organize the information and therefore helps them to clarify and structure ideas. Concept maps also help students to make meaningful connections between the main idea and other information related to it. And then they are also very easy to construct, as I've shown you. And then they help visual learners grasp the material very quickly. And generally, learners grasp materials when they see things other than hearing things. And then it also helps the students to see relationships between ideas, concepts, and authors. Maybe Kiko, you could disable for me the annotations from your end. I don't know if I can be able to disable it from my end.
Kindly disable from your end.
Let me disable annotation. Okay, I've done that. Then going forward, then when do we need to use concept maps? So since students might not know how to create a concept map, it is beneficial to model the process in class. So you need to show them probably how to do this. And then once the students the process, they can now use a concept last week, and you want to see if the students still can remember, you can come up with a concept maps with gaps. And then in a virtual classroom, you tell the students to fill in the gaps using maybe the chat section, and they can be able to come up, or you can unmute them and they tell you if the link going to A, it represents maybe photosynthesis, or it represents maybe a metamorphosis and all that. You can also, the students can use this concept also to do small group activities. You are giving them a task, you're telling them to generally summarize how maybe parts of a plant using a concept map. A good student will talk of maybe parts of a plant or parts of a flower. He'll be able to draw the node with a flower at the center. Then you say a flower from that node has maybe the petals, a flower has the stigma, a flower has the answers, and all those kinds of parts of the flower using a concept map in doing group work. We can also use concept maps generally as a whole class group activity, where now in those breakout room sessions, if you're using, let's say, like Teams to teach at your virtual classroom, you can have those different class groups in breakout in rooms, so that they can be able now to discuss in details. I've already mentioned about filling in the blanks. And then they can also organize their work. Maybe you've given them a task to go and find out. Nowadays, CBC is very involving, where the students are supposed maybe to go and take photos of, go to the internet and download photos of non-flowering plants, for example. A good student who knows how to use a concept map can do that and come and present to the rest of the class on how he was able to come up with these non-flowering plants, maybe the fern, the moss, and all that. He can be able to use it to organize his work. And even you as a teacher, when you use a concept map to organize your work, you realize that your work comes out very neatly, even on that online classroom or that virtual classroom. Some other important tool also, what I call a photo story. Use of photo stories. Photo stories is nothing new. These are generally what we are used to. But do we ever think of, if we were to bring this knowledge that we know about photo story in our digital classrooms, how important can it be? How effective can it be? Some of us who are growing up in the early days, in the late 80s and the early 90s, there was Mutai Wahome, a very serious columnist in the Daily Nation. We used to call him Whispers. People could just buy a newspaper just because of that guy, because what he used to put is very interesting stories in picture format. That was a photo story. You just look at the pictures and you get thrilled. We also had some other series running through the newspapers. We call it the Super Strikers. I understand nowadays we have it on real television with the real players. But Super Strikers nowadays was not even on TV. It was in the Saturday Nation, where you could buy that and follow just the story being told using photos. And you enjoyed it, and you could even retell that story. Yet you did not listen to it. You just saw the photo story on it. So how can photo stories help us to have our class being efficient and effective? So photo stories in classroom is basically using technology to tell a story. It can be used to reinforce subject matter and also to share an experience or present some new information in a more creative and interactive way. Digital storytelling will also create space for students to pursue topics about which they are passionate, or they grow in their learning around maybe the assigned lesson or the assigned topic or the assignment that is given. And they also help the students who want to showcase their learning to their peers, and also the teachers and audiences beyond the school environment. So digital storytelling is one thing that is very interesting, and I'll be able to take you through a quick one on how to create a good digital photo story using, let's say just five pictures. For example, you want to create a digital photo story using of wild animals. So there's a tool we call P-Story. It is also a free tool. I'll be able to share it also by Microsoft. It is it comes with Windows. So you go to the internet and look for Windows on your machine. Let me show you how the interface looks like. So because I've installed it on my machine, when you open it, once you have downloaded to Photo Story 3 for Windows, this is free software. You want to begin a new story? You want to edit a project, or do you want to play a story? Let us say I want to begin a new story. So when I click on next, it brings me to this window, and then it asks me, do you want to add a photo on it? I can say import photos. When I say import photos, it will take you to a folder where you need to have saved a few photos that you wanted maybe to use. So for example, if I go to my desktop, I want to look at I look at the folders in my desktop. There's one folder I had saved. Yes, Angada Elimu resources, wild animals. So with my wild animals there, I can click on one of them, maybe elephant, then say, okay. It adds the elephant on my picture story. Yeah. You can remove the black border so that the photo fits into the entire frame. This is how it will look like. So I say yes to all. So that's how the photo looks like. And once you add every photo, it will come here. But because I want to add several photos, let me just select all of them. And see how my photo story will look like. Then I say, okay. So all the photos have been added on the lower ribbon, as you can see. So once the photos have been added, you go to next. So you can edit, you can add text to the picture so that as the photo story will be playing, the text can also be displayed. Maybe saying something about the elephant. It is maybe the largest mammal or on dry land, something of the sort, to make it more interactive. Yeah. Once you have edited that, you can move to next. You can now add some music to it. Yeah. You can narrate your story, for example, if you want to voice this. So as the digital story is playing, your voice is heard in the background. You can say, welcome to Kenya. These are the type of animals we find in Kenya. The first animal that is on our story is the elephant. The elephant, the African elephant has tusks, has maybe trunk and all that, giving those details as the digital story plays. And you do that by recording your voice here. Yeah. So when you click on this, you can record that. Once you've done recording for each piece, you can go to the next one and record it in that order. And then you go to next. You can also select some music. If you want some background music, maybe to play for this digital story, you can add some music on it. How do you add music on it? Maybe you select music, or you can create. So when you select music, it will take you maybe back to some sort of sample music that I have. Let me use a simple music by Vitamin C there to add on to my digital story. And then of course, if I want to preview it, it can be previewed by listening to the music. So that's how my photo digital story will look like. So that is it with a digital photo story. Once you have done that, you can add some music, you can add some narration. You can also be able to add more pictures depending on what you're teaching in your lesson. And with such a photo story, you can never go wrong. I'll also be able to share the link for you to be able to download such a you complete your digital photo story. You select the place where you want to save it, maybe on desktop somewhere, then you save your project, and there you are. So there it is, my photo story. You can call it Wild Animals photo story. So you can come for it back later and be able to retrieve it from wherever it is. Then what else do we need to learn about the digital photo story? I've already told you the main importance for it. Then when creating digital photo stories, it's important the main idea, then you decide to each other, collect the data or using voice or music, then you develop photo story. I think for your assignment, until we meet next week, maybe I'll want you to create a simple photo story, or those who might not be able to create a simple photo story, not probably maybe limited due to gadgets, you can create a concept map, a mind map, and we can be able to upload it, a Word document mind map, and be able to upload it on our accounts on Angaza Elimu platform. That is our takeaway today, so that we'll be able to review them and have a look at them in the next lesson. So once you have done your work and you need now to present this is what normally I call the packaging your lesson and presenting. I'll be finishing in the next 5 minutes. Sorry for that. I know it's past time, but in the next 5 minutes, I'll be done. So you package your story. The best tool to use is you can use the presentation slides. Presentation slides come in different. You have the PowerPoints that most of you are used to, and we also have the Google slides. So slides frequently serve as the foundation for most of the lectures and maybe lesson, and they can either complement or confuse an instructor verbal message. So you need to be very keen when you are preparing your slides. You might still find some slides on a certain lesson have already been prepared. So it's important if you're going to be using slides that you did not make yourself, take time before the lesson, go through the slides, familiarize yourself with the slides before you can use them in your classroom. So what are the tips in using slides? When you want to use a slide, know that slides are used to convey visual ideas, graphs, and tables. They can also summarize facts or readings and also present questions for discussions for your students or pupils. How then do we design good slides? Rule number one for a good slide, use the 6x6 rule. That means on every slide, there should be no more than 6 bullets of statements, and there should be no more than 6 words per bullet or per statement. And then use large fonts for visibility, like what you're seeing on my display, preferably 32 point or larger for font like maybe Times New Roman or sans serif. And then use images that support and illustrate ideas, not simply decorative. Don't just congest your slides with images that have no meaning. Let the image relate to what the slide is talking about. For example, if you look at that slide that is showing on your screen, what is light? I have a light there. Then I'm saying it's a form of energy that allows the eye to see. And then light travels in a straight line. I have an image there showing light traveling in a straight line. We call that rectilinear propagation. So those are some of the rules that you need to use while designing good slides for your presentation. And the interactivity of your slides should focus on the student. And then also you as the presenter or the one using the slides, make sure you enhance your slides with a microphone. Like what I'm doing, I'm showing you a slide and I'm also talking. I'm not just showing you slides without the voicing them. It's very important in your remote teaching or learning for you to voice your slides with all that. These are tools that I'll be able to take some time early next week to take you through it, EXE. You can also, instead of using the slides, you can also prepare lessons on the web pages so that you upload them on a learning management system. That tool, we call it the EXE. I'll be able to take you through it next week. On Angaza, we also provide easy options for developing and curating digital content through content management systems, where we have inbuilt content editors that allow you to add PDFs, images, and videos. So you don't need to struggle using other content editors. When you go to your Angaza account platform, you will find all that documents there for you to, those tools there for you to use directly while you are online. So in this case, our activity, I've already told you, I want us to build a concept map, or for those who can do a digital photo story, use it, and we can be able to see it on your accounts as you engage us for the next lesson. That brings us to the end of our today's session. So in today's session, we have, as a recap, we have done on how to design an engaging learning environment using multimedia content to create an engaging learning environment, mind maps, which are visual organizers to enrich students' understanding of new concepts, photo story, telling stories concept using technology to reinforce subject matter and share experience, and finally, how to package your lesson. In most cases, in today's lesson, I've just looked at use of presentation slides in order to complement your teaching. And then I've said for this other software on EXE, it requires a whole hour on its own. I will not be able to touch it today. So probably towards the end, I'll be able to take you through an EXE as an addition on what you needed to know. So for some useful links for you there, angazaelimu.com platform, very unique and very important for all that you needed in terms of open education resources and all that. And then of course, how to make concept maps, I'll be able to share those links with Vida. Then he'll be able to share with you. And then the virtual understanding environment I was talking about, we have it there. And then of course, how to create the P story, I'll be able to share it with you. That brings it to the end of today's session. Over to you, Kiko or Vida.
Thank you so much, Jamatsen, for that in-depth presentation on content development. I was following on the chat and it's really well presented. So just because of time, I think, so that we don't keep holding the teachers, I'd request if you do have any questions, feel free to type them in the chat. Also, Vida is here. You can also directly chat Vida, and then we'll be able to answer those questions at the end or on the next session. But maybe we could just do a maximum of 3 questions right now, and then we'll end the session today. So if you do have any questions at this point, we'll just pick 3. Feel free to unmute yourself, and then we'll be able to pick those 2 questions. Just raise your hand. Martin Karani, you just go ahead and unmute yourself.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, sir.
How are you?
I'm doing well. How about you?
I'm also well. The lesson has been good, but I wanted him to explain again about the use of the concept map. How do we download the concept map? Or how do we get that application in our tablets or in our phones?
Okay, maybe I can take that, Kiko.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, I've said that all the useful applications I've talked about today, I'll be able to give you all those links onto which you can go and download them in your devices for free. So I'll share them with the Vida, who will put them on WhatsApp groups so that you can use them and download those links for free for your use onwards.
Okay, thank you.
Karibu.
Okay.
Another question? Vida, do we have any questions on the chat?
No, Kiko. I think we're all good at this time.
Oh, great, perfect. And I think with that point, then we'll call it a day. We'll be in touch through Vida. For any questions, feel free to touch base with Vida, and Teacher Maxwell should be able to give feedback. Once again, thank you so much for finding time to attend our sessions today, and looking forward on to the next question, on to the next session. I do understand that we'll be proceeding for midterm this week, and then we'll be able to know if on the discussion on Monday, if we'll be back, and then we can have the session on Monday too. But we'll be able to have that discussion with Vida and agree on the same. So thank you so much, and everyone is free to leave at this point.